Alright guys, we are getting ready to start on the interior tub for Fiero Blue, and that's going to be basically just a stock Fiero interior. For the most part, we're going to start painting the tub there. Now the interior color we're going to use is light gray from Tamiya, as it's a really close match to the real Fiero color, and out of all the grades I have, I think that's the best one that I've got to match the original color. After that, we're going to go over carpeting and all the other detailing work. So why don't we just get started with the painting now? Okay, so now we have all of the interior portions that are supposed to be the gray are painted gray now. Now we're going to do the dash as soon as we mix up a little more paint. Alright, now we've got everything masked off, and we're getting ready to paint the darker tones for the interior. Now for that, we're going to be using Tamiya Rubber Black, as that gives us a dark black tone without being pure black, because the Fiero's darker trim is not exactly a pure black. It's almost like a very dark charcoal type black, and this is a very close color to what the original car has. So we will be painting the instrument cluster, center console, and the dash to match the real car. Okay, guys, just to check the progress and where we're going with this thing, I mocked up the interior just so we can get a good look at it and see how everything goes together. And I think it's looking pretty great. It's going exactly the direction I wanted to. I've already started some of the detail painting, so now I'm going to continue with that. You can also see the seats and how well they match with the interior. I'm really happy with the way it's coming out. Now, before we get back to work, let's take a look at how it stacks up with the other two interiors in this triple build. Here we have Fiero Red's interior, and here we have the Test Shop Fiero interior. They're all coming out pretty good, I think, with the pinstriping in Fiero Red, and now all the work going into Fiero Blue here. All right, that's just a quick look at the three interiors. Now we gotta get back to finishing off Fiero's Blue interior. All right, guys, we've got the detail work done on the interior. As you can see here, I have the center console painted. I have the center console upper cover here is painted in titanium silver, which is very similar to the metallic shade on the original part in the car. We have all of our little buttons and everything painted. We have our, let's see if we can focus on that, focus. The bezel for the door handle painted, the red there for the unlock indicator. Right there, we have our center console trim pieces all done up. The dark gray there is the rubber black, which is very close to the color of the original car. And then, of course, we have the light gray, which appears a little more blue on the camera than what it actually is. Painted as the interior color for all the smaller pieces. Not smaller pieces, for the main interior, sorry. Don't even know what I'm talking about here. Here we have the dash. Let's see if we can focus. Focus, there we go. The dash is all painted up. You can see the radio and all the instruments are painted. All the air vents are in there. And we have our little red light on the radio to sort of an indicator of the original Pontiac red lighting on the radio. You can see the scratch-built glove box that I put in there. So everything's painted and detailed up and ready for its semi-gloss coat. And here we have our instrument cluster, of course with the red lit instruments, a Pontiac trademark. And here we have all of our buttons and everything painted in. That is also done in rubber black with the Tamiya Gold titanium silver for the faceplate. And of course, in my tradition of always forgetting something, I forgot the auxiliary gauges. Which will have to be painted for each individual interior. So we still have quite a bit of work to do, as those are going to have the same titanium silver faces. And then it's going to be a black, a light gray one, and a primer gray one for each individual car. So we're going to go ahead and lay some of that paint down and see how we go. Continue with the interior build for Fiero Blue. As you can see here, I have the carpeting started. So we're going to go over how I laid the carpeting in it and what I use for the carpeting. As you can see here, if I can hold this up to the camera correctly, we have the door panel is carpeted, the floor is carpeted, and you can see how it all lays down nice and smooth. So we're going to go and we're going to look that over. And we're going to go and see exactly what it takes to do this. Now, the first thing that I used is embossing powder. You can get this at any Home Depot. Sorry, guys, I'm thinking about something else that I have to pick up later. You can pick this up at any Hobby Lobby or arts and crafts store. It's a very fine powder, granular powder, and it makes a really good scale carpeting. So it's very, very easy to apply. The first thing we're going to do is break open our glue, if we don't get it all over our fingers first. And what I like to use, you can use any sort of adhesive you want. You can even use paint to hold the powder in place. A lot of people just like to paint the part that you're going to powder in the color that it's supposed that the interior is, or that the part is, and then just cover it over with the embossing powder. What I like to use is Mod Podge, but I like to use the matte Mod Podge so that it shines. It doesn't shine at all. It dries totally flat, so you don't see a shiny anything shiny peeking out from underneath the carpeting, which kind of ruins the look of it. So I'm going to show you exactly how it is I do this. Now, the first thing I like to do is get my work area ready. And this is pretty neat. Mrs. Onyx Fiero came up with this homemade paintbrush holder and tray, which she's obviously using as a palette for her paints. And made it with just a paper cup and what's toilet paper roll. That's a pretty neat idea. She's very crafty. So I'm going to be borrowing that from her, and I'm going to be using it for the embossing. Now, I always have a little catch can here because you're going to be using quite a bit of this powder. Very little of it actually sticks to the vehicle, but you're going to be pouring a lot of it in there to get it to apply evenly. So you're going to need something to catch the powder in. Then you're going to need paintbrushes. You'll be needing a couple of different size paintbrushes to get into the corners or crevices or whatever it is that you're embossing. So I like to keep one thick one here and one very thin one in order to get anywhere I need to. Then you're going to need a little bit of water. This is my paint jar, which I have filled with, well, my brush cleaning jar, which I have filled with water. And you're going to be using the water to dilute the white glue because you don't want it to be too thick so that it clumps up the embossing powder. Now, I've done this quite a few times on the channel before, so it's not anything new. But for those of you who haven't seen it and are following this build, we'll just do it again. Well, so what I like to do is keep a nice bit of the Mod Podge inside the cap. And then I'll take the brush, dunk the brush in water and get a nice amount of water. And then we're just going to dilute the Mod Podge with the water. We're going to thin it out. You don't want it too thick because then it can just clump up. So we're going to dilute the Mod Podge. Let's just move this over here. I want you guys to be able to see everything I'm doing here. There it is. Dilute the Mod Podge. And now basically all we're going to do is we're going to paint the areas we want to cover with the Mod Podge. Being careful not to get it anywhere you don't want it, because then you'll be getting this stuff sticking on everything. And you don't want, unless you do want that. I mean, that all depends on what you're building. You're going to apply it very carefully with your paintbrush. And the Mod Podge is really good because it is water-based, so if you do get it somewhere you don't want it, it's very easy to just wipe it off. Very carefully, only where you want it, to save you any cleanup time later on. Now, this area that I'm applying it to is not something that's readily visible once a car is built, but you at least want a little bit of the carpeting material back there so that it looks a little more realistic. So that's basically it. You're going to put that there. Then what you're going to do is take your embossing powder. You're going to open up the bottle and then just pour it all right over the entire area where you applied your adhesive. Then you're just going to rock it back and forth, making sure that the whole thing is covered evenly. I like to tap it just to make sure that it gets all everywhere that I wanted it to. And when you're done, you're going to double check because you may have some bald spots where it didn't cover completely. And then you're just going to go ahead and retouch that. And there we go. We got pretty good coverage there. I think we got it exactly where we wanted to. And as you can see, now we have our, okay, let me see if I can get the light in here. Let me see if I can give you guys a little bit of light. There we go. That's better. Now you can see how smooth and even the carpet came out. That one actually laid down pretty nicely. I found that many times I'll have to lay at least 2 layers of the Mod Podge on there. But this one actually came out excellent. So you guys actually got to see me do it right. That doesn't happen very often. So there we go. So that bit is laid down. Now we're going to lay down a little bit more and finish off the carpeting in this interior. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and continue modging the whatever we're going to call this thing. That's what we're going to continue doing. Just remember to dilute your Mod Podge so that you don't get big clumps of glue where you don't want it. And we're just going to keep going with this. So hang out, we'll Mod Podge together. Another tool that I didn't mention is a silicone brush, because if you happen to get this stuff anywhere you don't want to, the silicone brush is really good for removing it and cleaning up any areas that you didn't want to get any of this stuff on. And you can see there how that is fully covered, except for a few minor areas, most of which you'll never even see once the model is together. But there you go, guys. That's a quick and easy lesson on how to install carpeting on your models. I did that one yesterday. This one we just did together here. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of cleanup there. There we go. So that's pretty much it. Our carpet is laid in and ready to go. Now it's all about putting the interior together. Let's just clean up all the excess we have. And there we go. Very similar to the real Fiero's interior, which has a carpeted lower door panel. Here I've already installed the armrest. It's got a carpeted lower door panel, carpeted rear panel, and floor coverings. Okay, now we're just going to continue to go on with this build. Alright guys, one last note on the embossing powder. You can see here where it looks like I used quite a bit of it while doing this interior, but actually I really haven't. Because once you start pouring it back into your bottle, you're going to see that you actually used very, very little because it's still almost completely full. So this one little jar of embossing powder will last you quite a while. And there are quite a few colors available. And I recommend it way, way more than I would flocking powder. As you can see, very little cleanup. I'm already pretty much done with the cleanup. And it's easy to apply, easy to use. Just a much better alternative to flocking powder. Okay, we are back at the dashboard of Fiero Blue, and I wanted to talk about the gauges. If you can see that really highly reflective shine, it's because I just made lenses for these gauges. And I'm just going to show you how I did that really quick. I used my Bondic adhesive pen, and basically this is a adhesive that cures using ultraviolet light. It is crystal clear. It does have sort of a yellowish tint to it, and that's something that didn't realize until after it cured, that it does have a bit of a yellowish tint to it. But that's okay, because once it's in the car and sitting there, it actually looks like a real gauge cluster. And it's a very glossy finish, clear, so it looks exactly like lenses over the instruments, even on the two in the center. So basically I just put a drop of it in each gauge face, hit it with the ultraviolet light. Let's see, right there. You hold it on the gauge face, you can see how it glows when the ultraviolet light hits it for a few seconds, and it cures right away. And then we have really nice shiny gauge faces. Let's take a look at it in the car. And as you can see, look at that. That looks really cool. So every time you look in the car, when the light hits it, you'll see the reflections off of the glass over the gauges. Nice little detail. Okay. Alright guys, and here we have the interior to Fiero Blue. Pretty much done for all intents and purposes. All of the major assemblies are in and painted. Maybe adding one or two more details to the interior, but for now, I think we are just about done there. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. As I said before, you can see the reflection on the lenses for the instruments, which really came out nice. All of the detail painting just kind of worked perfectly. Our carpeting is intact. A few minor things to go, and then this interior will be done. And then we'll be moving on to the interior of the test shot Fiero, as that's going to be a quick assembly, and we'll walk you right through the entire assembly on that one. But that one's going to be quick since it's just a box stock build. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this episode, and I will see you again on the next one, where we're going to continue with this triple build. Alright guys, see you on the next one.